The Fast and the Furious began with stolen trucks, illegal street races, and one undercover cop forced to choose between duty and loyalty. None of the cast knew they were creating a billion-dollar franchise. Years later, the family they built would be shattered by Paul Walker's tragic death, while other stars faced arrests, prison, and deeply personal struggles. 25 years later, this is where the cast is now in 2026. Vin Diesel. In 2000, producer Neil H. Moritz was so impressed by Vin Diesel's commanding performance as Riddick in Pitch Black that he immediately offered him the role of Dominic Toretto. Diesel was 34 years old when he stepped into the shoes of the fearless leader of a Los Angeles street racing crew, a man who lived by speed, loyalty, and one unbreakable rule: family always comes first. At the time, Diesel was still largely unknown to mainstream audiences, but The Fast and the Furious changed everything. The film launched him into global stardom and paved the way for blockbuster franchises including XX, The Chronicles of Riddick, and his beloved voice role as Groot in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Success, however, came with its share of turmoil. Diesel's relationship with Dwayne Johnson became one of Hollywood's most publicized feuds after Johnson criticized the professionalism of certain male co-stars during the Fast and Furious films. Then, in 2013, the sudden death of Paul Walker devastated Diesel while Furious 7 was still in production. He repeatedly described Walker as his brother and named his youngest daughter Pauline in his honor. In late 2023, Diesel faced a sexual assault lawsuit filed by former assistant Asta Jonasson, alleging misconduct in Atlanta in 2010. Through his attorney, Diesel firmly denied the allegations. By 2026, at 59 years old, he remains in a long-term relationship with Paloma Jimenez, with whom he shares 3 children, while continuing to lead the Fast and Furious franchise and develop new film projects. Paul Walker director Rob Cohen cast Paul Walker as Brian O'Connor, the undercover police officer sent to infiltrate Dominic Toretto's street racing crew, only to find himself torn between duty and loyalty. Walker was 28 years old when he took on the role, bringing with him the easygoing charm that had already made him a rising star. More importantly, his genuine passion for cars and real-life experience as an accomplished racer gave Brian an authenticity that helped turn the character into one of the most beloved heroes in modern action cinema. The success of The Fast and the Furious led to starring roles in Into the Blue, Running Scared, and 8 Below. Yet away from Hollywood, Walker often admitted that he felt exhausted by fame, preferring to spend his free time surfing, scuba diving, exploring nature, and supporting humanitarian causes through his charity work. On November 30th, 2013, during a break from filming Furious 7, Walker was killed alongside his friend and professional driver Roger Rodas when their Porsche Carrera GT crashed into a light pole and burst into flames in Santa Clarita, California. He was only 40 years old. In the years that followed, his daughter Meadow Walker reached a 2017 settlement with Porsche over claims involving the car's seatbelt design and fuel system. Walker never married and was survived by his only child, Meadow Rain Walker, born in 1998 to his former girlfriend, Rebecca Soteros. By 2026, his legacy continues through the Paul Walker Foundation, while his family, friends, and millions of fans around the world continue to honor the actor whose influence extends far beyond the Fast and Furious franchise. Michelle Rodriguez. On-screen, Letty Ortiz is the fearless street racer and Dominic Toretto's loyal partner, the only woman who earns the complete trust of an all-male racing crew. Off-screen, however, Michelle Rodriguez didn't even have a driver's license when she was cast. At just 23 years old, she went through an intensive driving course to prepare for filming. Only months after her breakout performance in the independent hit Girl Fight earned her both a Gotham Award and an Independent Spirit Award, instantly establishing her as one of Hollywood's most exciting new talents. Letty became the role that transformed Rodriguez into one of the industry's defining action stars, leading to major films including Avatar, Resident Evil, SWAT, and Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. The years that followed, however, were far less glamorous. Between 2002 and 2008, Rodriguez faced a series of legal problems involving traffic violations and multiple DUI arrests, including incidents in Hawaii while filming Lost and later in Los Angeles, resulting in brief jail sentences and community service. In 2017, she publicly warned that she would leave the Fast and Furious franchise unless its female characters were given greater respect and more meaningful roles, prompting the studio to bring female writers into later installments. The death of Paul Walker also left her deeply heartbroken, sending her through a period of emotional crisis and reckless living. Openly bisexual, Rodriguez has never married and has been linked to Cara Delevingne and Zac Efron. Now, she is 48 years old and continues starring in major action films while remaining one of Hollywood's most recognizable and outspoken female action icons. Matt Schulze. Before joining the Fast and the Furious, Matt Schulze left behind a career in modeling and his music studies at the Conservatory of Atlanta to play Vince, Dominic Toretto's hot-tempered, fiercely loyal friend whose jealousy and reckless temper often put him at odds with Brian O'Connor. Schulze was 29 years old when he appeared in the first film, bringing a raw intensity that made Vince one of the franchise's most memorable original characters. Outside the Fast and Furious series, Schulze also built a reputation for playing intimidating villains, most notably the vampire Chupa in Blade 2 and the ruthless antagonist in The Transporter. Yet, after the first Fast and Furious film, Vince disappeared from the franchise for nearly a decade. His unexpected return in Fast 5 in 2011 delighted longtime fans, only for the character's emotional death to bring his story to a heartbreaking conclusion. Not long afterward, Schulze quietly stepped away from Hollywood, following his last screen appearances around 2013. By 2026, at 54 years old, Matt Schulze remains one of the most mysterious members of the original Fast and Furious cast, with no major acting comeback and very few public appearances, leaving fans to remember him through Vince's unforgettable loyalty and sacrifice. Jordana Brewster. At the heart of the Toretto family stands Mia, Dominic's younger sister, the quiet presence who keeps everyone connected despite the street races, police investigations, and constant danger surrounding those she loves. Jordana Brewster was 21 years old when she landed the role, having already built a promising career through As the World Turns and The Faculty. Like Michelle Rodriguez, she didn't know how to drive before filming and had to earn her driver's license in an intensive crash course before production began. Even as her acting career was taking off, Brewster refused to abandon her education. While balancing the growing success of the Fast and Furious franchise, she completed a bachelor's degree in English from Yale University, graduating in 2003 despite worrying that Hollywood might forget her while she was away. She later expanded her resume with films such as The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, and the television series Lethal Weapon. Away from the spotlight, Brewster has spoken openly about the heartbreak of being unable to carry a pregnancy and her decision to welcome her two sons through surrogacy. She married producer Andrew Form in 2007, before the couple divorced in 2020 after 13 years together. In September 2022, she married technology executive Mason Morfitt. As of 2026, Brewster is 46 years old and still acts in film and television while balancing family life and remaining an important part of the Fast and Furious franchise. Noel Guglielmi. More than 100 films into his career, Noel Guglielmi has become known for playing a tough Latino gangster figure in Hollywood. That long-running screen image began with Hector, the organizer of the underground street races in the first The Fast and the Furious. Guglielmi was 31 years old when he took on the role, and although his screen time was brief, Hector became the performance that forever shaped the kinds of characters he would be offered. Audiences later saw him in films such as Training Day, Bruce Almighty, and The Dark Knight Rises, often portraying gang members or hardened criminals. Ironically, Guglielmi's own journey could easily have followed the same path. Raised in a troubled neighborhood in Southern California, he spent much of his youth surrounded by gangs and crime before discovering that acting could offer him a different future. Faith became another turning point in his life. Determined to help others avoid the mistakes he had witnessed growing up, Guglielmi began speaking regularly at schools, prisons, and community events, encouraging young people to stay away from gangs and violence. By 2026, at 56 years old, Noel Guglielmi continues acting in film and television while balancing his career with motivational speaking and faith-based outreach, enjoying a quiet family life with his wife, Megan Guglielmi. Rick Yune. Before arriving on the set of The Fast and the Furious, Rick Yune had already built an impressive career on the Versace runway and as a nationally ranked Taekwondo competitor. That combination of athletic discipline, sharp features, and intense screen presence helped him land the role of Johnny Tran, the powerful leader of a rival Asian street racing crew and Dominic Toretto's most dangerous opponent. Yune was 30 years old when he took on the role, creating one of the franchise's most memorable early villains. His performance quickly opened the door to larger opportunities, including the Bond villain Zhao in Die Another Day, followed by roles in Olympus Has Fallen and the television series Prison Break. Yet that success also came with an invisible limitation. As a Korean-American actor, Yoon spent much of the 2000s being repeatedly cast as stereotypical Asian villains, leaving him few opportunities to explore more complex characters. Away from acting, he also faced several legal disputes involving personal finances and business investment contracts. By 2026, Rick Yune is 55 years old and still works as an actor, writer, and producer, remaining one of the most influential Asian American screen villains of the past 2 decades while pursuing a wider range of creative projects. Tom Barry Long, before he stepped in front of a movie camera, Tom Barry spent years behind a microphone, working as a radio DJ and commercial voice announcer. That rich, authoritative voice eventually helped him land the role of FBI agent Bilkins, Brian O'Connor's no-nonsense superior who constantly pressures him to complete the investigation into Dominic Toretto's street racing crew from behind the scenes. Barry was 51 years old when he appeared in The Fast and the Furious, bringing a natural sense of authority to every scene. His years in broadcasting became one of his greatest strengths after he began acting professionally in his 40s. That distinctive screen presence soon led to Barry's best-known television role as Detective Will Jeffries in the acclaimed crime drama Cold Case, where he appeared throughout the series' 7-season run from 2003 to 2010 and became a familiar face to millions of television viewers. After decades of steady work in film and television, Barry gradually stepped away from acting as he entered his late 70s and began focusing on his health. Now, he is 76 years old and retired from the entertainment industry and enjoys a quiet, private life, bringing to a close a career of nearly 4 decades built around one of the most recognizable voices in American television, Chad Lindberg. After earning recognition in October Sky, Chad Lindberg joined The Fast and the Furious as Jesse, the gifted young mechanic whose attention deficit disorder never diminished his extraordinary talent. Lindberg was 25 years old when he took on the role, and Jesse's heartbreaking death became one of the most emotional moments in the first film, permanently closing the door on the character's return to the franchise. Life after Fast and Furious proved far more difficult than many expected. Lindbergh struggled to find major roles, spending years working in smaller supporting parts while battling depression and financial hardship. Some of those challenges were compounded by long-term health effects stemming from brain surgery he underwent when he was just 4 years old. A new chapter began when Supernatural fans embraced him as the eccentric genius Ash, introducing him to a loyal new audience. He later expanded his career by hosting the paranormal investigation series Ghost Stalkers, combining his interest in the unexplained with television. Today, at 50 years old, Chad Lindbergh remains unmarried and continues acting while pursuing podcasting, paranormal projects, and appearances at fan conventions, steadily building a career shaped by perseverance through decades of personal and professional challenges. Ja Rule director Rob Cohen cast Ja Rule in The Fast and the Furious. While the rapper was at the height of his music career, with multiple Billboard Hot 100 chart-topping hits, making him one of the biggest names in hip-hop. Ja Rule was 25 years old when he appeared as Edwin, the confident street racer who boldly challenges Brian O'Connor before race wars, only to lose after Brian delivers his now famous response. After the film's success, the producers reportedly offered Ja Rule $500,000 to return in Too Fast, Too Furious with a much larger role. Believing he was too big for the movie, he turned the offer down. The character was ultimately rewritten into Tej Parker, played by Ludacris, who went on to become one of the franchise's central figures across 9 films, a decision that would later be viewed as one of Hollywood's most expensive missed opportunities. The years that followed were marked by controversy. Ja Rule served nearly 2 years in prison between 2011 and 2013 for tax evasion and illegal weapons possession. In 2017, he co-founded the disastrous Fyre Festival, whose fraudulent collapse triggered multiple multi-million-dollar civil lawsuits and severely damaged his reputation. As of 2026, Ja Rule is 50 years old and still records music tours and pursues business ventures while remaining devoted to his wife, Aisha Murray, his high school sweetheart since their 2001 marriage, and their 3 children. Johnny Strong. Johnny Strong was 27 years old when he appeared in The Fast and the Furious as Leon, the quiet but dependable member of Dominic Toretto's crew responsible for monitoring police scanners and warning the team before every illegal street race. Although Leon spoke little, he played a vital role in keeping the crew one step ahead of law enforcement. That same year, Strong also appeared in Black Hawk Down, adding to the momentum he had already built with Get Carter. As the Fast and Furious franchise grew into a global phenomenon, Leon never returned, even though the character was never killed off. Rather than continuing down Hollywood's blockbuster path, Strong became increasingly frustrated with the industry's commercial direction and chose to step away on his own terms. He focused instead on his rock music, independent action films such as Daylight's End, and his longtime passion for crafting custom handmade knives. In 2001, Strong married actress Alexandra Holden, but the marriage eventually ended in divorce. By 2026, at 52 years old, Johnny Strong continues recording music, acting in selective independent projects, and pursuing his work as a craftsman, remaining true to the independent path he chose over mainstream Hollywood success. Ted Levine. Ted Levine played Sergeant Tanner, the calm and principled police supervisor who stands behind Brian O'Connor, even as the young officer struggles between duty and loyalty when he was 44 years old. By then, however, Levine had already secured his place in film history a decade earlier with his unforgettable performance as the serial killer Buffalo Bill in the 1991 Oscar-winning classic The Silence of the Lambs. Ironically, the role that made him famous also became one of the biggest obstacles in his career. Buffalo Bill's terrifying legacy was so powerful that Levine spent years being typecast as disturbed or ruthless villains, making it far more difficult to earn opportunities to portray honorable characters like Sergeant Tanner. He eventually broadened his career with acclaimed performances as Captain Leland Stottlemyre in Monk, followed by memorable roles in American Gangster, Shutter Island, and Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. proving the remarkable range that many audiences had overlooked. Today, at 69 years old, Ted Levine remains happily married to Anne Phillips, with whom he has 2 children, and continues to take selective acting roles while enjoying a long, respected career built far beyond the shadow of Buffalo Bill. So that's the Fast and the Furious 2001 cast in 2026. Which cast member changed the most over the years, and who was your favorite character? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Then and Now videos.